in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, the show that helps you build the business you need for the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. In my studies of strategic communication, one of the most fascinating things I get to research and look at is the use of storytelling. There's even a name for it called story selling, which is an interesting turn of phrase. But it's the strategy of communicating with people through stories and narratives and ways to connect with people on a different and much deeper level than typical communication. So I'm really excited to have a coach here today, an expert in storytelling. Her name is Parul Banka. She is a storytelling coach and a keynote speaker. She helps coaches, consultants, and trainers use their personal stories to build their dream business without sounding salesy, pushy, or preachy. So Parul, it is such a pleasure to have you on Rebelpreneur Radio. Welcome.
Thank you, Ralph. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And the neat thing about our conversation is you are connecting with me through or from London, UK.
That's right.
Well, I can't wait to get over to the UK and check everything out. And so it's really neat to have you, and it's a pleasure to connect with you. Before we get into what you do and who you do it for, tell us a little bit about how you got started and what's your background.
Okay, Ralph, my life was going well. It was a normal life, which meant that I worked as an employee. Back then, I used to work in the world of HR and learning and development, and I enjoyed that life. It was a beautiful life. Until in the week of my 34th birthday, I was diagnosed with the most aggressive kind of breast cancer. And the moment the word cancer was dropped in my life, that was the moment when my life changed. And so I did what I had to do to get through cancer, which was a pretty long treatment. But in those first 6 months, I honestly didn't know whether I would make it. I really didn't know if I would get an opportunity to be here in 6 months' time or so. And during those 6 months, Ralph, I made a promise to myself every single day. And my promise was very simple. I promised to myself that if I get an opportunity to come out of cancer on the other side, I'm going to live the rest of my life, no matter how long it is going to be or how short it is going to be, to the best of my ability, as meaningfully as possible, as joyfully as possible. And I'm one of those people who were very fortunate to make it to the other side of cancer. I'm very, very grateful to my doctors and everyone else who supported me to come out on the other side. And then it was time for me to keep my promise.
Yes.
And so from living on an autopilot mode, I began to bring in changes into my own life and started living consciously. And bringing in changes in work was a part of that conscious living. So I decided to step away from the corporate world and only focus on the work that made my heart sing. And public speaking and storytelling were always my passions. In fact, in public speaking, storytelling was my superpower. That's how I would put it. It just made my heart sing, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I decided to work as a storytelling coach, because in my role as an HR, I had always done lots of coaching. So I knew that coaching is something that I really wanted to do and help people with. So that's how storytelling and coaching came together. And I decided to work for myself and work as a storytelling coach. So that's me.
That's a very interesting story. I like how you made a promise to yourself and then you kept that promise and now you're giving back and living life to the fullest. That is really powerful and very motivating. You help coaches, consultants, and trainers to use their personal stories, just like you did. You help them to build their dream business and to communicate in ways that are not salesy, pushy, and preachy. I really like that. Tell us a little bit more about how you do that and who do you work with? Who are your ideal prospects?
Okay, so as you know that I'm a storytelling coach. My ideal clients are fellow coaches, trainers, and consultants. What I help them do is I help them communicate their message, connect with their audience through stories, and I also help them establish their credibility as subject matter experts, all through the power of personal stories. I'm all about personal stories, just how I shared with you my own personal story of cancer and survival from cancer. That's how I help people dip into their lives, pull out personal stories, and use them to build that message and connect with their audience.
I really like that. And I think a lot of people, they may be listening to this and they may think, well, I'm not a cancer survivor. I don't really have that much of a story. And I heard someone say one time that it's more about turning your mess into a message.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Well, what you said, I get it all the time, Ralph. I get it all the time because people would listen to my story and say, oh, you know what? We don't have such a big story. We don't have such an inspiring story. But honestly, I'm here to emphasize that every single story is inspirational. And the reason why most people think that they have just had a normal life and that their story is not inspirational enough is because they live that life, that story, every single day. They normalize it because it is normal for them. That's what their life is. And that is why people do great things. People overcome great obstacles. But it is very easy for them to think that their story is not inspiring enough. But trust me, every story is inspiring.
That is so profound, and it's very true. We tend to underestimate our value. We underestimate our experiences, and we think, well, nobody wants to hear about my troubles. They don't want to hear about my mess. But actually, if you take your mess and turn it into a message, it can be motivation for people that you really have no idea the value of the experiences and things that you've been through. So you help people to find that personal story and to use it to build their dream business.
That's right.
What would you say is the most common problem you see? And maybe this was it, I don't know, but what is the most common problem when you're trying to help people to come up with that story? And maybe maybe the first one is, well, I don't think that I really have a story, or I'm nobody special, or what, nobody wants to hear my story. I can imagine those would be some challenges. And I think you just addressed that very nicely. But other than that, what's a common problem you see when you're helping people to come up with that story?
What you said is absolutely correct, Ralph. A lot of people tend to think that their story is not special enough or inspiring enough, and that is why they wouldn't just put themselves out there and share their message. Now, what really happens when they don't share their message is that they don't get seen and heard. If people don't get seen and heard, then they can't find their ideal clients. Their clients can't find them. And the reason why they get into this mess is because of a couple of reasons. One is very, very powerful, their inner stories. That's how I like to say. And believing that our stories are not good enough is nothing but a belief. It's an inner story that they have been telling themselves repeatedly. So things like inner stories, things like worthiness, or the need to be perfect. I've got to have my business plan 100% sorted out before I put it out. Why? Because I don't want to be judged. What is that? That's just an inner story that somebody has practiced over and over again until it started feeling true. So inner story is one aspect which prevents people from putting their message out. The second is actual skill. So there are people who believe that they have value to bring to this world, value to offer to their clients, but they don't really know how to do that. And that is where we get into the hardcore skills of story writing and storytelling. So the first one is working on the inner stories, the whole mindset, the whole psychology aspect of storytelling and public speaking. And the second is how do you write a great story? How do you deliver a great story? Now, there are people who are doing that as well. They are going ahead and sharing their story. But I just want to remind you that my ideal audience is coaches. And what happens a lot of times is when they start sharing their content, it is very easy for them to come across as preachy. They talk coaching, they end up talking coaching, and nobody likes to be preached to. Nobody likes to be sold to. Nobody likes that. That doesn't work.
So how can we transition? How do we get out of the mindset of, oh, I've got to tell people about my business. I've got to tell them about my products and services and programs and all the marketing stuff, and transition into this storytelling where it's more relaxed, it's natural, it doesn't feel salesy or pushy or preachy. What can someone begin to do? And I realize that there's a whole process they have to go through, but are there some things that they can begin to implement now that would kind of take them in this direction and away from the old method?
Yes, definitely. And I would hugely emphasize on the use of sharing personal stories. Why? Because our personal stories are our personal stories. They are unique. So things like if I have gone through a transformation, if I have overcome something, no matter how big or small it is, it can be hugely inspirational for somebody who's going through an exactly similar situation, or even a different challenge in their own life. I remember that somebody had listened to my cancer story, and that person was actually going through a divorce. But when I came out in the open and shared my story, she found it so inspirational that she said, I'm going to go out and share my story and help those people, help to support those people whose relationships are breaking down. So you never know, the inspiration that you bring can impact people at so many levels. So my first message is use your personal stories, because your stories are special. Stop belittling how much value you bring to this world. The second thing that I've got to share is that people have got to understand that their message is important, because like I said, if I don't share my message, my clients don't find me, I don't find my clients, and then who do I serve? How do I make the contribution I want to make? How do I change this world for the better? And that is why if I don't share my message, I'm not just doing a disservice to myself, but also to others. And that is why people have to go out and share their message. It's more of a mindset thing that I'm talking about. And the third thing that I want to share with you is people should understand and be okay with the fact that their message will not resonate with everyone. And this is something that people don't get. And often what will happen is people would go out, they would put up a message on social media. Most people use Facebook or LinkedIn these days, or different forms of social media. I have prospects and clients tell me that we went ahead and did a blog post, and somebody made fun of us, somebody trolled us. And that really shook our confidence. And I've had clients who never went ahead and wrote another message or did another live video after that.
Wow.
Because they just couldn't give themselves permission that everybody won't love their message.
Right.
It is important to focus on those people who like your message instead of those who don't. So I have a tribe of people who follow me religiously. They love my content, they consume my content, and I also have people who just don't get what I say or what I write.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, even when we have the perfect story, it's still not going to resonate and connect with everybody, and it's not designed to, is it?
It is not meant to, because those people are not your ideal clients. These people are not the people you want to be working with. And I would say, if there are 1,000 people who resonate with my message, and if there are 5 people who absolutely hate my guts and my message, I would rather focus on those 1,000 people than focus on those 5 people.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you said that, because it's human nature, I think, that we want everybody to know us and like our stories and give us likes and share the things that we're sharing with them and be excited about it. But I think that one test of a great message is that it turns people off. Maybe it turns as many people off as it turns on.
Yeah.
And that shows that you're really dialed into your audience, and the idea of telling a universal story that's going to be equally attractive to everybody is just not realistic, is it?
No. Otherwise, every Hollywood movie would be a super duper hit.
Exactly.
Because every movie would resonate with every viewer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they don't, because different people consume content differently. What works for one person doesn't work for another person.
Wow.
And the day we start becoming okay with that, the day we start giving ourselves permission to fail, in the sense that people don't resonate with our message, and be okay with it, we will find the courage to go out and continue sharing our message.
Very good. Now, how would working with a storytelling coach like yourself really help people to get past these obstacles and improve their chances for success right out of the bat? Okay,
so there are essentially 3 ways in which I help people. One is I help people on rewiring their inner stories, because like Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. And if our inner story tells us I can't more than it tells us I can, then it'll just make sure that we get in our own way time and again and again and again.
And that comes across when we're trying to tell our stories, doesn't it?
Yes, and that comes across. And we may actually never go out and share our story, because we will always be stopped by an inner story that I'm not good enough. Oh, who in this world believes or thinks I'm special enough that they would want to listen to me? Who the hell am I? That kind of stuff. So I would just not go out and share my story in the first place. So, or if I go and share my story, I get trolled, somebody doesn't resonate with my message, I would take it as a personal rejection, because my inner story tells me I'm not good enough. So that is the first bit I help people with.
I think that's so important also, just to go back and reiterate that this whole idea of fake it until you make it, it's really doing a disservice to your audience, and it's not coming across as authentic because you don't believe it. You know that it's fake.
Yeah. So it doesn't work.
So it's not about creating something that is going to fool someone else into sounding better than it really is. It's about finding the real thing that's so much more valuable just as it is, and not trying to dress it up into something that it's not.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you on this, Ralph. I think it is very disrespectful to our audience members, to our prospects and clients, when we assume that we'll fake it until we make it, because I believe people are smart. People can see through us. People can see when we are being authentic or not. Mm-hmm. And I think because they are the people who we want to serve, it is but natural that we should give them respect and come across honestly to them.
Sure.
We owe that to our clients and prospects.
Excellent.
So yes.
So
I was telling you about...
You work with the inner story and get our belief in our
inner
mindset.
Stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we first go within, and then we work on our external stories. And that's the second bit of work I do. I help people craft their stories and also teach them how to deliver those stories. So that's where my story writing and public speaking skills come into picture. So these are two things that I help people with.
Excellent. Well, this is such a refreshing thing to talk about, especially when you look on the internet and there's all kinds of marketing hacks and tricks and funnels and different things people trying to do to get attention. And the idea that you can just be yourself and share your story is very, very refreshing. So as a storytelling coach, you probably have some different programs or things that you're working on right now. Share something with our audience that's got you really excited.
Oh, I'm scaling my coaching practice in the new year, and I am very, very excited. So I'm consistently showing up and sharing my message and offering loads of value to my audience. And I've just opened up slots for my signature coaching program. So I have 3 signature coaching programs. One is Rewire Your Story, which is all about tweaking your inner stories into empowering stories, because when our inner stories change from disempowered stories to empowered stories, that's when we really step into our power. So that's my first program. The second is What's My Story? That's when we work on our personal stories and use them to build our businesses. And my third program is Be the Inspiring Speaker. This is where I teach people, I coach people on how to become great public speakers. And I'm looking forward to helping lots and lots of people through all these programs in the coming weeks. So I'm very excited.
That sounds really, really excellent. And I think that actually meets a very important need, especially for coaches and consultants, some of the same people that I work with. And so I know that there is a tremendous need for that out there. And I think it's great. I'm glad that you're keeping your promise to yourself.
Yes, I'm glad too.
So if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what is share your website, how they can reach out and find out more about you.
My website is www.caramelcoaching.com. People can also find me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. They can find me as Coach Parul Banka. They can write to me on my email, which is parulbanka@caramelcoaching.com.
Great. So that's caramelcoaching.com. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, this has been really inspirational and motivational, and congratulations on your personal victory and overcoming. And
thank you.
It's very inspiring. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap it up?
Well, I would just say life is too short to stay unhappy and not make a contribution to make this world a better place. So guys, just go out, share your message, be happy, make a contribution, make this world a better place.
I love it. Inspirational words of wisdom from Parul Banka. She is a storytelling coach and a keynote speaker who helps coaches, consultants, and trainers use their personal stories to build their dream businesses without sounding salesy, pushy, or preachy. You can find out more at caramelcoaching.com. Parul, it has been a real pleasure to have you on Rebelpreneur Radio today. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Ralph. It's been a pleasure coming here and talking to you.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.